All right, here we are on the Ultimate World Cruise again. And it's Monday, June 24th, and we are in Split, Croatia. And the centerpiece of Split, Croatia is Diocletian's palace, emperor of Eastern Roman Empire. And so we're going to go do a quick city tour, and then we're going to go visit Diocletian's palace. This is a view out of our window. That's looking at the palace right there. Straight ahead is where the palace is, very close to where the ship docked. Here you can. This is the seafront area, marina and whatnot. You can see you're near the seas out there in the distance. So we're actually close to the harbor. And our tour guide told us that any of those high-end boats out there surely don't belong to anybody from Croatia. Their economy's not doing too great. We know that Croatia has been in existence since 1991 when the former communist Yugoslavia was broken up into Croatia and Serbia, Bosnia Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Slovenia. So they're trying to bring their economy up. It's mostly based on tourism, and they get 2 to 3 ships every day during the cruising season. So a little bit about Diocletian before we get to his palace, which we're going to get to in just a minute. He was the emperor of Rome from 284 until 305. And he is one of the only emperors to abdicate the position before he was either killed or died of natural causes. Very few of the Caesars died of natural causes. Most of them were eliminated by murder or poison or something. Diocletian died in his palace here. So he abdicated in 305 and he lived until 311 in his palace here, tending his gardens. All right, so here's a map of the palace. You can see the side where the ocean is where we're standing. And this thing had like 16 towers around the outside, 4 large ones, 1 on each corner. Only 3 of the large towers remain, and most all of those other ones, the smaller ones, have been disassembled and the stones used for something else. So he's just pointing out to us which of those towers still remains. And we're going to go in the back door, which is the one by the ocean. So that tower that you see there on the right is one of the 3 remaining towers in the corners of the palace. And you can see the front wall stretching from the tower off to the left. And that's basically what you can see. There's the whole front of the palace. Actually, it's the back. And we're going to go in the back door, which is right in the middle of that back wall. And the front entrance, the main one's on the other side. It's called the Golden Entrance. So interesting, this entrance, it used to be right on the water. For you to come in from a ship and gone in this way. And this underground portion of the palace he's told us it was preserved the way it was because for hundreds of years, the residences up above just drilled holes in there and all the sewage went down in this pit down here. And like in Vesuvius, where everything was covered by ash, here they had to excavate all that sewage out in order to get it restored to where it is today.
So now we're going through the passageway in that bottom up to the main center courtyard. And I sped up the walking part. So now we're in the center courtyard. You can see those columns around the outside and that Sphinx right there. The Sphinx is the oldest thing in the palace, and it's 3,500 years old. There's another one that I'll show you in a minute. But these columns that are used to hold up the roof and the facade, Diocletian brought back from Egypt after they had an uprising in Egypt, and he went over there and conquered them, and he brought back all these marble pillars from Egypt. And so they're actually older than the rest of the stone that the palace is made out of. There's the center courtyard. Those columns are on both sides. And behind us would be the entrance to his quarters, which you'll see in a minute. Now, what you're looking at here is the mausoleum where he was buried, or at least interred. And then, so it was built after he died in 311. And that column that you see there, the tower, was actually built in the 13th century and took 300 years to build. The entire palace here was built in the 290s, and it only took 10 years based on the number of workers and stuff they had. So the palace took 10 years. That tower took 300 years and was built in the Renaissance period. And this is this used to be a Roman temple and a Sphinx there out in front of it. And they later on, when Christianity was adopted as the main religion, then they turned that into a Christian church, and it's actually a baptistry. And then they disfigured the Sphinx by taking off the head that looked like a human head, and so it was just left looking like an animal, and they were okay with that. So now here we're going to take a walk through the small streets that are inside the palace. There's the main courtyard again, looking towards those two doors you see down there, the entrance to the emperor's quarters. And we're going to head back the other direction towards that golden gate entry that's on the other side of the palace. So I sped up the walking so you could see what going through these skinny streets was like. But there are people who still live here. So this thing was built circa 290 to 300, and there are actually people still living in there and lots of people working in all those shops and stuff. So it's one of the few places in the world where you have such an antiquity like this that people are still living in. And of course, it's under UNESCO protection, so they really can't make any modifications. But there are some people that rent part of it, and I'll show you in a minute up here by the Golden Gate. They rent part of it, and it's a B&B, so you can actually come here and stay within the palace if you like. But there's lots of shops here. It really is a kind of a tourist trap. Okay, so here I slowed it down again. This is the Golden Gate, and what would have been the original front entrance. And you could see that it was very secure. They had two entrances, two gates people had to come through, and then there's a parapet around the outside where the Roman soldiers would patrol. And that little door you can see on the left, the guy standing in front of, somebody's rented that, and there's a B&B in there where you can see a couple of period-dressed Roman soldiers. This guy's going to whip out his cell phone. I doubt that's authentic. Also looks like they have stainless steel material on their uniforms, which can't be right. Anyway, here's a look at the Golden Gate from the outside. You can see the entire front, what would have been the front wall, with those niches above the door where there used to be statues that got destroyed. They don't know where they are, but the official title of Diocletian was Augustus of the Eastern Empire, and he's known for dividing up the Roman Empire into four pieces, first two and later four, and they had rulers over each of those four. So he was the ruler over the eastern piece until he abdicated in 305. Later on, after he died, his division didn't survive, and Constantine was the emperor of the Roman Empire. It went back to just one empire. This guy you see here is Gregory, who petitioned to the Pope to let the local people have Mass in their own language, and he was granted that, and so he's considered one of the fathers of the Croatian language because of being able to worship in Croat. Okay, so here's the front of actually the back of the palace again, looking towards the harbor, and there you can see the back end of Serenade out there in the distance. So that was our day, and here's a time lapse of us leaving. And tomorrow we'll be in Dubrovnik, so stay tuned for another video on Dubrovnik.